when you talk about self-belief, and it comes in the early part of your story, you said, and back at the blog, it said, people had confidence in me, so I had confidence in me. And that's this kind of external agent sometimes you need. So I'm going to pass the baton over to Andy, because obviously you joined us
as a substitute.
Well, not as a substitute, but I'm just wondering, both your own journey, but the relationship with John that might have brought you to this point.
I came to Doncaster. I'm not a Doncaster. I came to Doncaster 27 years ago from a distant land called Sheffield. It may have been a distant land because the people in Sheffield said, "You're going where? You're going where? Doncaster? Are you mad?" And that was the sort of response I got. It was really fascinating, actually. But I realised very quickly that Doncaster actually had a much more can-do attitude than Sheffield. I realised that very quickly. The people I dealt with were more open-minded. They were less parochial. And that is absolutely true. And I went to work for an organisation in a sector which I knew very well. I was a boring story very quickly. I was a trained underwriter. I was a really nasty person. I used to calculate people's insurance premiums and decide how much I could take off them. That was my job. And so the industry was easy. I knew my subject. But the area was different and the organisation was different. I was a poacher turned gamekeeper turned poacher. It was a technical sales role. And I instantly fell in love with Doncaster, and I consider myself an honorary Doncastrian now. Now, Doncaster, during that time, it was on the back of, for those of you old enough to remember, on the back of Donygate. Donny was in a bit of a mess. It was a bit of a disaster, actually, bad reputation. But through partnership between the business community and the local authority, actually, they've done some remarkably transformational things. I can't believe what's changed during my tenure here, actually. I look at more recently Fars, I look at the Southern Gateway, I look at the racecourse, I look at the shopping centre. You think about what has changed, the new Doncaster Rovers Stadium, and you compare that, Doncaster College, you compare that to any other South Yorkshire, West Yorkshire town, and it's probably developed a lot more than people realise, actually. My wider concern, it's probably the discussion point later, is the branding of Doncaster and the way that can be improved, actually. And we can get onto that later. But in terms of my relationship with John, who did the blog, when I started, I was at a firm called Atkinson Smith. I don't know if any of you remember it. We were just a standard commercial insurance broker. So we insured places like this. We at the moment, I have clients here, clients doing different things. And it was a pretty standard, steady state, but we realised that you have to add value. You can't be a transactional commodity. You've got to add something to your clients' businesses. So we evolved the risk management proposition based on health and safety, then employment law, and now we've got an environmental consultancy. And the business has grown, and if I say so myself, we're extremely successful. Going back to purpose and passion and leadership, and that is really important. So I was very lucky, and I've always been lucky. I've always worked with really good people. I think my skill was that I realised I worked with good people, and I plagiarised and I learned. And there's nothing wrong in that, because I think that's a good skill actually to have. So I'm working with somebody in John Whiteley who had incredible passion for what he believed in, and he trusted his people. That was really important. So there was never a culture of failure or fear of failure. It was go and do it, live, flourish. I know you guys, back to your point about diverse skills, you pick people from the pile that says no, because that's where the skills exist. And John recognised that if he created the framework, he created the environment, and then let people flourish, the fizzy bubbles will pop up. And that's what we've done, and we've invested, and I've learnt from that. And I took over essentially the operational running of the business back in 2015. And I've continued exactly the same principles. We've not deviated from that at all. Obviously, the world has changed in terms of the way you would operate. COVID hit, of course. We've actually recently been through a buyout. We've sold the business, although I'm reinvested in that new business. But it's changed the culture all of a sudden in terms of certain financial mechanisms. But our job locally is to protect our people and create and maintain that environment. And that, for me, is a really important thing. So I think we've got a really open, learning and nurturing environment. We want our people to learn. We want them to develop. I know that there are people in that organisation that are a lot better than me. Technically, they've got all the skills. And I think, sat around this table, the resignation, I'm sat here listening to all of you speak, I'm thinking, yeah. best of FCI was a coach as well. Brilliant, fantastic, you know. I left school wanted to be a footballer, you know. I thought, yeah, I did A-level. I thought, yeah, I'm not doing university. What a waste of time. But I just don't need to do that. And but then you talk about the other things. I think your comments, John, about the structure and the way things are measured, and the fact you have 3 years for the future. The future is going to be a really strange place. The future is going to be really, really weird. And I think if you look at AI, augmented reality, and what's coming down the line, I don't think we realise what's coming down the line. So we've got to create that foundation, that place where people learn and learn to adapt and aren't rigid in thought. So that's what I've been lucky enough to learn.
Wow, that's thank
Well,
you.
move with the rhythms and changes. That's what you have to go with.
You've
They're
got-
always changing, right?
I think from a very early age, when kids get to school, they've got to be told, this is not, you are not in a box. This is not you. You are not 1, 2, 3 dimensional. Be open-minded, be curious, because the world is going to change, and you've got to adapt and move and flow with that world.
Definitely.
And that's what you've got to do. And that goes back to probably your comment regarding the education system. And all these things, I looked at, I read the blogs actually. And as I read the blogs, I thought, education, opportunity, the themes are very similar. So it's a very interesting world we're in at the moment.